because you are in the Hoodwood. I'm the Black Bandit KJ Green, welcoming you to another edition of Sports from the Hoodwood. Coming up in this edition, this is a football-centric edition. So get ready. Micah Parsons traded to the Packers. We're going to look at how it impacts both teams. And is this just another long line of missteps by Jerry Jones? We'll look at college football. Comebacks galore. Upsets galore. Texas goes down. Is this the beginning of the end for Arch Manning? And is this the beginning of the end for Kalen DeBoer at Alabama? Look, week 1 NFL picks. Got all 16 games to look at, so we've got a lot of ground to cover. So buckle your seatbelts? No. Buckle your seatbelts, put on your crash helmets. It's Sports from the Hoodwood coming at you. Let's go.
You're tuned in to Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's foremost location for the most honest, unfiltered commentary and insight on the world of sports. Now, once again, here's Hoodwood's hometown hero, KJ Green.
Greetings from the Hoodwood, where football is finally here, full steam. I'm your man, KJ Green, welcoming you to another edition of Sports from the Hoodwood. And hey, even Snuffy's hanging around with us this week. Let's start out with football. I said football was going to be on tap and it was going to be full focus, and I'm not kidding. The biggest thing that happened in the NFL, probably one of the biggest blockbuster trades in quite a while. Micah Parsons, disgruntled linebacker for the Dallas Cowboys, wants more money, allegedly has a deal in place with Jerry Jones, or so the big grand poobah of the Cowboys likes to say, but there's no deal in place. So what happens? There's bickering back and forth. And finally, action. Does Micah Parsons get signed a contract and report to Frisco, Texas in the Star Center? No. He gets sent to Green Bay. I'm on my way to Michigan and I get the news. And I'm looking, the notice comes across my phone and I look at it and I'm like, are you kidding me? This, as a Vikings fan, is red letter disaster, because now one of the premier defensive linemen in the NFL, some people say Trey Hendrickson of the Bengals, some people say Micah Parsons. Either way, you're not wrong. Both of them impact players that can change the game with a single play. They must be accounted for on every play. Micah Parsons traded to the Green Bay Packers for Kenny Clark and 2 first-round picks. This is probably one of the biggest This is probably one of the biggest trades the Cowboys have done since Herschel Walker in 1989. And a lot of people are making comparisons to those 2 trades. But I'm going to tell you why they're different. 1, Jimmy Johnson made that first trade, the one that took an aged Herschel Walker, who had a lot of miles on his legs by the time this trade was done, made to a semi-desperate Minnesota Vikings team who thought they needed a quality running back to make a Super Bowl run. The Minnesota Vikings didn't even win a playoff game all the time that they had Herschel Walker. That, as a Vikings fan, that pains me. But the biggest thing wasn't so much the trade for Herschel Walker, it was the draft choices. Jimmy Johnson parlayed all those draft choices into the players and future draft picks that would be the foundation and building block of 3 Super Bowl titles in the 90s. One of those picks turned out to be Emmitt Smith. One of those picks turned out to be Darren Woodson. There were so many great players that were gleaned from that trade. That made the Cowboys the premier team of the 90s. And it set the Vikings back a number of years. They didn't get back into real contention. I mean, they won a division in 89. They made the playoffs in 92. They made the playoffs a number of times, but they weren't the powerhouse Cowboys were. Those draft picks made the Cowboys who they were. Now, a lot of people are trying to liken this trade the same way. Micah Parsons is nowhere near in the age and mileage that Herschel Walker was. The Green Bay Packers are getting one of the top defensive players in the NFL. And in the rugged NFC North, that is going to be needed to keep up with the Lions and the Vikings and the up-and-coming Bears. This is a high-stakes arms game that many teams in the NFC cannot afford to fall behind in. And the Cowboys may have handed the Packers a key component to what could be a run to the Super Bowl, somewhere they haven't been in 15 years. Now, for teams like the Lions and the Vikings and the Bears, they're going to face this guy twice a year. This is a real problem that the Cowboys just handed the Packers on a silver platter. And again, as a Vikings fan, this distresses me to no end. To know that young J.J. McCarthy, a rookie in a sense, is going to have to be facing a very, very talented addition to an already tough defense that the Packers possess. I think Jerry Jones thinks too much of himself. He desperately wants a Super Bowl title. He's 82 years old. He hasn't had a Super Bowl title in his hands since he snatched that trophy from Barry Switzer in January of 1996. That was 30 years ago. I will be 53 in 3 weeks. Jerry Jones was my age the last time the Cowboys won a Super Bowl. It has been 30 years since the Cowboys have even made it to the NFC title game, much less a Super Bowl, much less winning it. And taking that key component of Micah Parsons out of that defense, which was suspect even with Parsons to begin with, is now even worse. And this throws even more of a burden on Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb and a weak Cowboys running game. This team only won 7 games last year. What do you think they're going to do this coming year? And guess who they've got first on the docket to start the 2025 season? That's right, the defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles in Philly. Got 2 words for you, Cowboy fan. Good luck. I love football. I ain't gonna lie to you. I mean, I'm a baseball guy. Baseball was what my mom taught me when I was a kid. But football will always be the thing that drives my emotions, the thing that makes me excited, and especially college football. College football started just this past weekend. The full slate of games. Week 1. Last week was week 0. There were a few one-off games. Iowa State, Kansas State playing in Dublin, Hawaii and Stanford were 2 of the notable games. My beloved alma mater, UC, played in Kansas City. Why, I still don't know. Playing against Nebraska, which Lincoln is only 300 miles from Kansas City. It was a virtual home game from Nebraska. But Cincinnati was the home team. They took $3 million to move the game from where it was supposed to be in Cincinnati. The game got moved to Indianapolis. Then it got moved to Kansas City. Now, for their part, Cincinnati did play at least reasonably decent, losing only 20-17, and end zone interception thwarting a late fourth quarter drive. But I still do not like the fact that Cincinnati had to play a virtual road game and dress it up like a home game and say, oh, well, we're actually the home team here. No, you weren't. You're the road team. Scott Satterfield's seat is getting hotter by the second with every bad decision he makes. This team made the playoff 4 years ago. And that seems so far away now. This team is light years away from that playoff team. Des Ridder, Sauce Gardner, Jerome Ford, and the like. Light years from that. But you want to talk about a seat that's hot? It's Kalen DeBoer. The head coach of Alabama, having to fill in an absolutely unfillable seat. I mean, how did Ray Perkins feel when he had to come behind the legend that was Bear Bryant in the early 80s after Bear Bryant retired? Nick Saban, almost as great a stature, we would say a modern day Bear Bryant for Alabama football fans of the 2000s, late 2000s, 2010s, and early 2020s. Winning national championships and being in the contention talk for national championship on a regular yearly basis. Kalen DeBoer, who took the Washington team to the playoff just a couple of years ago. Many people thought a smart hire by Alabama, a tested coach, someone who has been in the big games. But moving from the then Pac-12 to the SEC, that's a different animal. The Tide struggled last year. They lost 4 games last year. You lose 4 games in Alabama in half a decade, not one season. Not a good look for Kalen DeBoer. They lost to Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt, for crying out loud. Alabama doesn't lose to Vanderbilt. Bad enough you lose to Georgia. Bad enough you lose to Texas. There are teams that you just weren't supposed to lose to, and Vanderbilt was one of them. Kalen DeBoer's seat was red hot at the end of the 2024 season. It's even hotter after the first week, losing to an otherwise unremarkable Florida State, coming off of a 2-10 season. Now, Florida State's coach was already on the hot seat as it was, but his seat exponentially cooled off. You beat Alabama by 14, Mike Norvell's job got real safe. At least he can at least bank that win and say, you know what? We're doing something. And the alumni will back off of him for a while now. But Kalen DeBoer, his seat got real hot, nuclear hot. Lose to an unranked team. Okay, the only thing that would have made it worse if you lost in Tuscaloosa. The game was in Tallahassee. I'll give him that. But you had to know that was a trap game just waiting to happen. And the Tide walked into that trap and fell into it. And DeBoer is already fighting for sale signs in front of his house already. Now, they've got a cookie game next week. A decently tough game against Wisconsin, but that's at home. Then you have there's a little team called Georgia at the end of the month, just salivating at the chance to beat on a hated rival. If they lose that game, Kalen DeBoer might not survive the season. And he's got a $70 million buyout. You don't think there are a lot of rich Alabama alum that are willing to pony up the money to get rid of him? You don't lose 7-8 games in the span of 14, 15 months if your name is the Crimson Tide. Now, there's some other games that were notable this week that I liked to look at, thought was interesting. Miami Notre Dame being one of them. Great game down in South Beach. 2 heavyweight teams slugging it out. Back and forth game. The U pulling ahead late. But awful clock mismanagement. Just inexcusable clock mismanagement on the part of the Irish cost them a shot at tying the game, if not trying to win it outright. With under a minute to go, no timeouts, you take an intentional grounding and then another sack, and those are the only 2 plays you run in 36 seconds. To quote the eminent football scholar named Jaguar Gator 9, great website. You always should check that on YouTube as well. I'm sorry, what? How do you not run more than 2 plays in 36 seconds? I love Marcus Freeman. And if have been around the Hoodwood long enough, I can't stand Notre Dame. But I got love for Marcus Freeman, former Bearcat coach. I'm always have love for him and root for him in a quiet way. Hope that he does decently at that post. But his repeated clock mismanagements are starting to get Irish fans a little in their feels. Losing to Miami, a team that they hate, was bad enough. But not even having a real shot at winning it because of poor clock management, inexcusable. Just inexcusable. Inexcusable is a word that we might use talking about Arch Manning, the very, very hyped freshman quarterback. And it's just a freshman quarterback. He's been on the team 3 years. But the nephew of Eli and Peyton, that's Cooper's boy, the oldest Manning's son, and the grandson of Archie Manning, has the quarterback pedigree and then some. The hype game against Ohio State was a real test for the young Manning, and he failed badly. His throws were bad. His reads were bad. He had 1 touchdown pass, and albeit it was a tight defensive struggle in Columbus, the Buckeyes winning 14-7, but you would have thought that Arch Manning would have played a tougher game, a better game, been more mentally prepared. Now, you can give a little bit of an excuse if you want that Ohio State threw some crazy exotic pro style looks at Arch Manning, developed by Matt Patricia, former defensive coordinator and NFL head coach, now the defensive coordinator for the Buckeyes. They threw some crazy schemes at Arch Manning, and he looked confused, played confused. And Texas, the then number 1 team, suffered for it. Ryan Day, who is the defending national champion of Ohio State Buckeyes, he lives on an eternal hot seat. I lived in Columbus for a while. There is no hotter seat in college football than the head coach of Ohio State, at least from my perspective. Ryan Day led the Buckeyes to a national championship with 4 impressive wins after a lackluster loss to Michigan to end their 2024 regular season. They didn't even play in the Big Ten title game, but they got a berth in the college football playoff and played their way through a minefield of teams to win the national championship, albeit 14-2. They did win the national championship. Run it back with almost an entirely new squad. Expectations are still high. Buckeye fan will accept nothing less than an unbeaten season and beating Michigan by 50 points. Anything less is a failure season. But to beat a number 1 Texas team, even though it was at home, but to beat a number 1 Texas team, keep them off the board for the better part of 3 quarters, and then frustrate a hype quarterback like Arch Manning like they did, should make Ryan Day's seat get a lot cooler. It shouldn't be hot to begin with, but it still is. Let's take a time out, come back, and look at week 1 of the NFL season. We are finally here. The NFL season is upon us. Let's get to the picks. Sports from Hoodwood comes back at you after this.
Do you love high school football? Want to get in the minds of coaches before their big game? Then tune into the Hurry Up podcast. Presented by Hoodwood Media Group, the Hurry Up checks in with high school coaches weekly to get their thoughts on their next opponent and what it will take to get a victory. Check out the Hurry Up podcast every Thursday on YouTube on the Hoodwood Media Group page, linked in the show notes. Be sure to follow us on social media at HG Media Group. And now, back to the Hoodwood.
You're tuned in to Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's foremost location for the most honest insight, thorough analysis, and unfiltered opinion on the world of sports. Now, once again, here's the man of the hour, After Hours, your host, KJ Green.
You are back in the Hoodwood. My name is KJ Green, and let's get into promised, the Week 1 NFL picks, including the Thursday games. Yes, I'm going to try to get them in early enough where I don't have to worry about any kind of wraparound or anything like that. Back again for another season. I'm hoping to be as accurate as possible and maintain that 702 pick percentage I had last year. As per custom, I'll give a brief look on each of the games on NFL Docket every week. It's being provided by ESPN Bet. Strictly for entertainment and comparison purposes only. I always state that. So if you bet the Lions and lose, you do that on your own volition. You don't come calling me. I do not pay bookies. Keep in mind, the games are being shown on a host of providers and networks, so find folks 506 Sports for a comprehensive map of the games being shown in your area. All times are listed as Eastern Daylight Time right now, and for the first week, I'll be listing the teams with their 2024 final regular season win-loss total. We'll start out with the Thursday night game leading off. Last year's 7-10 Cowboys taking on 14-3 Eagles at Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia. 8:20 kickoff on NBC and Peacock. The Eagles are 6.5-point favorites. Fast fact is last year the Eagles swept the Cowboys for the first time since 2011. The 2025 season kicks off with the defending Super Bowl champs hosting their hated divisional rivals. The Eagles have the look of the team that wants to defend their title and make a show of it in front of a frenzied home crowd. Meanwhile, the Pokes are trying to once again regain their mythical form of years gone by, but with the uncertainty of Micah Parsons now gone, no longer anchoring the defense, and the up and down nature of Dak Prescott on the offensive side, counting on consistency from this squad is risky at best. I think the Eagles kick off the season with a rousing start to their title defense. The pick here is Philadelphia. Next on the docket, we have a Friday game in Sao Paulo, Brazil. The 15-2 Chiefs taking on the 11-6 Chargers at Corinthians Arena in Sao Paulo, Brazil. 8 p.m. kickoff on YouTube. That's YouTube exclusive. The Chiefs are 3.5-point favorites. Fast fact, last year the Chiefs won 15 regular season games and 2 postseason games, despite never scoring more than 30 points more than 30 points in any game. They scored 30 exactly twice. Now the NFL gets around the long-standing ban on early season Friday pro game by playing a game in South America, well outside the 75-mile radius of any American football game being played on Friday. And it is wintertime still in Brazil, so it will be a colder climb. Playing only a second game in the South American continent where it's still late winter, the defending AFC champs face an old divisional rival in the NFL's return to Brazil, where the Eagles and Packers squared off in the inaugural contest last year. Look for the Chiefs to try to establish a better offensive rhythm than they had last year when they kept winning games by the ugliest of margins. The Chargers are trying to find that mojo that carried them on a late charge to claim a late playoff spot, but the less you talk about that wild card game in Houston, that evisceration they took, the better it'll be for you. As has been their want in their meetings, look for a tense, low-scoring affair. The pick here is Kansas City. Let's go to the Sunday games. This is a CBS doubleheader week to start the season. Again, check all times. They are Eastern Daylight Time, but check your local listings and 506 Sports for the game in your area. We'll start out with the 10-7 Buccaneers taking on the 8-9 Falcons at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. 1 o'clock kickoff on Fox. Buccaneers are 2.5-point favorites. Fast fact here is the Buccaneers-Falcons matchup is one of the NFL's closest rivalries, with the Atlanta Falcons holding a slim 32-31 all-time lead in the series. Now, the Falcons swept the season series in 2024, winning both games against the Buccaneers, even though the Buccaneers did win the division. Now, the Bucs played smartly, made playoffs, won the division, and the Falcons are a team full of questions. Is Michael Penix Jr. really the answer at quarterback? Or is Kirk Cousins going to hold out for one more season and try to make magic? I don't trust the Falcons as far as I can throw them. Their offense may be fairly potent, but the defense is lax. And Baker Mayfield piloting the Buccaneers is about as sure a bet as you can get. I never thought I'd ever say Baker Mayfield being a sure bet, but we're throwing to Mike Evans as a quality receiver and a good running game. The Buccaneers should be able to steady themselves. The pick here is Tampa Bay. Next on the docket, we have the 9-8 Bengals taking on the 3-14 Browns at Huntington Bank Field in Cleveland. 1 p.m. kickoff on Fox. The Bengals are 5.5-point favorites. Fast fact, last year the Bengals swept the season series with the Browns for the first time since 2017. Now, the Bengals are hoping to avoid the slow season starts that have been their wont under the Zach Taylor regime. Starting off against a Browns squad that can't get out of its way might help. Now, the Browns are hoping that Joe Flacco, he's still in this league? Yes. Joe Flacco, hoping that he can pull a few games out of the way back and keep the Browns solvent, though it's only a matter of time before the quarterback reins are handed to either Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders. But for this week, as long as Joe Burrow can stay upright, avoiding withering pass rush from Myles Garrett, he should have more than offensive weaponry in Jamar Chase and T. Higgins to get a rare season-opening win. I hope. The pick here is Cincinnati. Next on the docket, we have the 8-9 Dolphins taking on the 8-9 Colts at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. 1 p.m. kickoff on CBS. Colts are 1.5-point favorites. Fast fact, here's the Colts have a winning record at home all time against the Dolphins in the last 40 years. However, the Dolphins have an all-time winning record against the Colts in Miami. Now, the Dolphins are hoping that Tua Tagovailoa can make it through a season injury-free. Fingers crossed. Now, with a once potent running game with Devin Achane being maybe questionable, that may be putting more pressure on Tagovailoa to deliver a win. The Dolphins start the season in Indianapolis, where the Colts have more questions than answers. And the irrepressible Daniel Jones gets the starting nod for the Colts over Anthony Richardson, who is younger and I think more potent and has more potential. Will this make a difference? Doubtful. The Dolphins have at least enough offensive firepower to outgun the Colts, and this should not be a pretty game. The pick here is Miami. Next on the docket, we have the 4-13 Raiders taking on the 4-13 Patriots at Gillette Stadium in Foxborough, Mass. 1 p.m. kickoff on CBS. The Patriots are 2.5-point favorites. Fast fact, these teams have a few common denominators. Pat's offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels was once the Raiders head coach from 2022 to 2023. And Hall of Fame cornerback, Mike Haynes, played over 90 games for both the Patriots and the Raiders. Now, last year, both teams were, bad. Really bad. Both teams are looking for some sort of renewal and rebirth this year, and the Raiders are looking to Geno Smith and to power their offense, along with rookie Ashton Jeanty. The Pats, for their part, are hoping that Mike Vrabel is that key link to the halcyon Bill Belichick days. Pat's offensive questions are plentiful, like who will take a majority of the snaps? Right now, it's Drake May, but how long he holds that title is anyone's guess. This is a coin flip game at best. And though I've long abhorred picking Western teams that come east for early games, something tells me that the Raiders' offense might have enough to carry the day. That's why I'm having Las Vegas Raiders as the Hoodwood upset of the week. Next on the docket, we have the 8-9 Cardinals taking on the 5-12 Saints at Caesars Superdome in New Orleans. 1 p.m. kickoff on CBS. The Cardinals are 6.5-point favorites. Fast fact, historically, the Cardinals-Saints rivalry has been tightly contested. Two teams entering the 2025 Week 1 matchup tied at 16 wins apiece in their all-time regular season record. Now, the Saints do hold a 9-4 edge at home in the Superdome. Now, the Cardinals at times, while offensively challenged, do boast a competent offense, which should be more than we said for the Saints and should be enough to carry the day on the road in New Orleans, who have turned to Spencer Rattler as their starting quarterback. But beyond Alvin Kamara, the Saints have little, if any, offensive firepower, and their defense has more holes than Swiss cheese. While this may not be a walkover for the Cardinals, they should have enough firepower to easily outdistance the Saints in this season opener. The pick here is Arizona. Next on the docket, we have the 10-7 Steelers taking on the 5-12 Jets at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey. 1 p.m. kickoff on CBS. The Steelers are 2.5-point favorites. Fast fact here, the Steelers have dominated the all-time series, leading 20-7, but the Jets have won 4 of the last 5 that games have been played in the Meadowlands. Now, the Steelers throttled the Jets last year 37-15 with Russell Wilson throwing for 2 scores and running for another as the Steelers defense flummoxed the Jets all game. The quarterback for the Jets at that time was Aaron Rodgers. You may have heard of him. He's now the Steelers quarterback. He starts the season at quarterback for the Steelers. How long he can stay healthy is anybody's guess. The Jets are, as usual, a hot mess. Justin Wilson will start for the Jets, and you have to fear for his long-term safety and sanity. Steelers are far from a feared unit, but they are competent enough to make short work of this team even on the road. The pick here is Pittsburgh. Let's take a timeout, come back with the rest of the early games as well as the late games and the primetime games of this Week 1 NFL season. Sports from the Hoodwood comes back at you. I may even have a different hat after this.
Is today your last day on Earth because you are being deployed to space tomorrow? Have you just turned 18 and you're ready to get out of your parents' house? Has your granddaughter gotten her boyfriend pregnant? Whatever your reason, you need us at GottaGetMarriedNow.com. We specialize in last-minute weddings. Active duty, military veterans and retired discounts are available. Visit us at GottaGetMarriedNow.com.
You're tuned in to Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's premier destination for no-nonsense commentary, thorough analysis, and logical insight on the world of sports. Now here's the man that Wikipedia and Google call for sports fact checks, your host, KJ Green.
You are back in the Hoodwood. Let's continue with the Week 1 picks. Next on the docket, we have the 3-14 Giants taking on the 12-5 Commanders at Northwest Stadium in Landover, Maryland. 1 o'clock kickoff on Fox. Commanders are 6.5-point favorites. Fast fact, here's last year, Washington quarterback Jaden Daniels became the first rookie quarterback since at least 1950 to start and win 2 games over the Giants in the same season. Now, the G-men are a mess. What else is new? They will start well-traveled Russell Wilson. He is still in this league as they take on the Commanders in the nation's capital. Now, the Commanders are looking to build on that 12-win season and the magical rookie season of Jaden Daniels. I think that with the Washington offense and defense will firmly outclass the fledgling G-men offense, and their defense, the G-men don't have a defense. They allegedly have a defense, and that's going to be their downfall. Washington has more punch on both sides of the ball, and it will show in spades. Pick here is Washington. Next on the docket, we have the 5-12 Panthers taking on the 4-13 Jaguars at Everbank Stadium in Jacksonville. 1 o'clock kickoff on Fox. The Jaguars are 3.5-point favorites. Fast fact here is these 1995 expansion mates, both the Jags and Panthers, both have number 1 overall draft picks as their starting quarterbacks. The Panthers have room to grow. Bryce Young is still going through growing pains, and he has the starting job for now. How long he keeps it depends on if his play ever improves. They take on the Jags in Jacksonville, who have quarterback troubles of their own, hoping that Trevor Lawrence can shake off his sophomore and junior multi-year slump to become the kind of franchise quarterback that they've always dreamed of. Now, this game is basically a toss-up of a pair of bad teams facing off. I think Jags will win at home, though it will not be a pretty sight. The pick here is Jacksonville. Turning to the late games on the docket, we start out with 3-4 Titans taking on the 10-7 Broncos at Empower Field at Mile High in Denver. 4:05 kickoff on Fox. The Broncos are 7.5-point favorites. Fast fact here is though the Titans do lead the all-time series 25-18, the Broncos have been more successful recently, winning 4 of the last 6 matchups and 6 of the last 7 in Denver. The Titans had a bad season last year. Nothing really went right for Brian Callahan's crew, and as a result, they got the number 1 pick in the 2025 draft, Cam Ward. They're throwing him to the Wolves. And the Wolves are waiting in Denver. Now, the Broncos are an up-and-coming team. I still don't trust Bo Nix as a quarterback, but Sean Payton does, and that's all that a Bronco Nation needs to hear. They believe in Sean Payton, therefore they believe in Bo Nix. Now, he should have no real trouble against the Titans' piss-poor defense. That being said, I still think the Titans will give the Broncos a bit of a scare. Not totally, That's why I'm making this game, because the game's in Denver, and Denver usually plays, the Broncos play really good in Denver, especially against so-so teams. I'm making this the Hoodwood lock of the week. Next on the docket, we have the 6-11 49ers taking on the 10-7 Seahawks at Lumen Field in Seattle. 4:05 kickoff on Fox. The 49ers are 2.5-point favorites. Fast fact here is the Seahawks broke a 6-game Niner win streak in the series last year with a 2017 win in Santa Clara, their first win in the Niners venue since 2021. Now, the Seahawks were a surprise team last year, pushing their way past the downtrodden 49ers who fell apart when Brock Purdy got hurt, Christian McCaffrey got hurt, and this player got hurt, and everybody it seemed like in the 49ers uniform was wearing some sort of eye patch or elbow brace or some sort of malaise or malady that befell them. That's why they went 6-11 last year. Now, many people think a rested and healthy team could challenge for the NFC West title. I don't think so. I don't believe in Brock Purdy. I think he's a good quarterback, but I think that Christian McCaffrey is well past the 10,000-mile mark on his tires and that he will not play a full season. Playing in Seattle is always a tough proposition for any team. And I think the 49ers think a little too much of themselves. And I think the odds makers think a little too much of themselves too. Now, the Seahawks are going to depend on their newest free agent, Sam Darnold. Can he recreate the magic he had in Minnesota? I don't know if he'll be able to recreate the magic he had in Minnesota, but I still think he is good enough to carry the Seahawks to what many people might think is a surprising win over their division rivals. The pick here is Seattle. Turning to the late games on CBS, first game on that docket is 15-2 Lions taking on the 11-6 Packers at Lambeau Field in Green Bay, Wisconsin. 4:25 kickoff on CBS. The Packers are 1.5-point favorites. Now, fast fact here is the Lions are coming off a franchise best 15-win season, but they became the fifth 15-win season to not make or win the Super Bowl. Now, the Lions are a team that many people still think are one of the elite in the NFL, included, with a stellar passing game from Jared Goff to Amon-Ra St. Brown and the two-headed Sonic and Knuckles running backs of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. The Lions are a potent offensive squad. The defense, regaining Aiden Hutchinson from a devastating leg injury from last year, are still very much potent. The Packers, Jordan Love is still not a quarterback I trust. His offense is, I would think, suspect. Now, their defense got a boost with Micah Parsons joining in a surprise trade. This makes the Packers one of the teams to beat in the NFC, as much as I hate to say it as a Vikings fan. But they will have a stern test with the Lions in Lambeau first week. I still don't believe in Jordan Love, and I still think the Lions, though they lost both their coordinators, are still the better balanced team and will eke out a tight win. The pick here is Detroit. The final late afternoon game is 10-7 Texans taking on the 10-7 Rams at SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, California. 4:25 kickoff on CBS. The Rams are 2.5-point favorites. Fast fact, here's the Texans' first ever visit to SoFi Stadium to play either LA-based team. Their only other visit to LA was a 27-20 win over the Chargers in their temporary home of Dignity Health Sports Park in 2019. Now, this is a surprisingly good matchup between two playoff teams from last year. The Texans, led by the irrepressible C.J. Stroud, will make the tough Rams defense work even harder to try to contain him. Now, Matthew Stafford at 37 is still slugging away, bad back and all. They have a potent offense in their own right. Can they survive a shootout with the Texans? I think they can. And it will be a high-scoring shootout to be sure. But I think the Rams at home can eke out a slight victory. The pick here is the Los Angeles Rams. Turning to the Sunday night game, we have 12-5 Ravens taking on the 13-4 Bills at Highmark Stadium in Orchard Park, New York. 8:20 kickoff on NBC. The Bills are favored by 1.5 points. Fast fact is the last home opener for the current iteration of Highmark Stadium, the third oldest stadium in the NFL behind Soldier Field and Arrowhead, as the Bills will be moving on the other side of the parking lot to a newer version of Highmark Stadium next season. Now, this Sunday night is a doozy. Promise. This is what both AFC heavyweights are full of. Both teams looking to be playing this rematch in January for much higher stakes and to avoid the juggernauts that could be waiting for them in Cincinnati, LA, and especially Kansas City. Both these teams have big play quarterbacks that can change the game with their arm or leg, as well as big play ball hawking defenses that can cash in on any miscue. That being said, playing in Buffalo is never a fun prospect for a visiting team. And though Lamar Jackson can make things a bit hairy, I do still believe in the Bills. I believe in Josh Allen and that big play defense that can make just enough plays to win a tight game. The pick here is Buffalo. Turning to the Monday night game as the week 1 wraps up, we have the 14-3 Vikings taking on the 5-12 Bears at Soldier Field in Chicago. 8:15 kickoff on ABC. The Vikings are 1.5 point favorites. Fast fact here is the Vikings have won 8 of the past 10 meetings, but both Bears wins were in Minneapolis. Go figure. Now, the Bears opened the season in no, wait a minute. That's not right. I'll edit that out. The Bears opened the season hosting their longtime divisional rivals at home and I'll try it again. The Bears opened the season at home facing their longtime rival and facing a Vikings team who is starting a virtual rookie in J.J. McCarthy. They have guarded hopes with the prospect of McCarthy. Caleb Williams will have the guidance of offensive guru Ben Johnson, who made the Lions offensive juggernaut under his coordinator role. Now, the Bears will have a fairly steep learning curve as the exotic schemes of Vikings defensive coordinator Brian Flores will dream up and keep any coach up at night. I see a tight, low-scoring slugfest, but I think that the Vikings can still eke it out. The pick here is Minnesota, and there you have it. Last year, I went 191-81, 12-6 on the locks, 9-9 on the upsets. Hope to start out with a nice, solid skein of wins to start out 2025. We will take our final timeout, come back with the Hoodwood, Fat Dap, Head Slap, and the final word from the Wood. Sports from the Hoodwood heads down the home stretch after this.
Do you love high school football? Want to get in the minds of coaches before their big game? Then tune into the Hurry Up podcast. Presented by Hoodwood Media Group, the Hurry Up checks in with high school coaches weekly to get their thoughts on their next opponent and what it will take to get a victory. Check out the Hurry Up podcast every Thursday on YouTube on the Hoodwood Media Group page, linked in the show notes. Be sure to follow us on social media at HG Media Group. And now, back to the Hoodwood.
You're tuned into Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's foremost location for no-nonsense commentary, insight, and opinions on the world of sports. Here now live in living color, black by popular demand, your host, KJ Green.
Rounding third and headed for home here in the Hoodwood, we'll finish up strong with the Fat Dap and Head Slap and the final word from the Wood. Our Hoodwood Fat Dap, believe it or not, goes to, and I'm going to try to see if I can not butcher this name here, Kamil Mazurak, who at the U.S. Open tried to give his hat, a signed hat, to a young fan. But Peter Cezarek, a CEO of some company in Poland, snatched the hat away from the young fan and then tried to stuff it in a bag. After the massive backlash that came after he did this reprehensible act, tried to smooth things over by returning the hat to the young fan and trying to make amends. The Fat Dap isn't toward the CEO because he would not have apologized or even said anything had it not been for the intense social media backlash. The Fat Dap is to the tennis player, Kamil Mazurak, who took time to find the young fan and give him a lot more swag in place of the stolen hat. The CEO can keep the hat, and he can try his little smoothing over to get great publicity, because it's not going to work, and we're not buying it. Fat dap goes to the tennis player, not the CEO. The head slap of the week goes to Bill Belichick, the erstwhile head coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels, whom many people thought this is going to be a great new era in Tar Heel football. You had all of these big names on the sidelines for Monday night's game against TCU, nationally televised, and UNC started out fast with a touchdown and then promptly laid an egg. TCU scored 41 unanswered points. I should say 41 straight points en route to a 48-14 evisceration of the Tar Heels in Chapel Hill. It just seemed that Bill Belichick had no answers, and his overmatched team looked very much like that. Overmatched. Head slap to Bill Belichick, who is finding out real fast that coaching in college ain't coaching in the pros, especially when you don't have players like Tom Brady. And now, without much further ado, let's go to the final word from the wood. Now, one of my favorite rap groups of all time is Public Enemy. Chuck D's bracing and searing lyrics have always had a political edge, and something I've always admired and looked up to. One of Public Enemy's great tunes from the Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back CD is Don't Believe the Hype. Many people say that Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back is Public Enemy's best work, and I find myself 35 some odd years later still listening to this seminal CD. Now, I bring up Don't Believe the Hype when we're talking about Texas quarterback Arch Manning, who has been hailed as the second coming of Tim Tebow in some circles. Now, Manning does have a lineage that most would kill for and envy. While his father, Cooper, was limited in his collegiate career by spinal stenosis, his uncles, Peyton and Eli, went on to Hall of Fame careers in both college and the pros. Arch Manning had a pedigree that no one questions. When he chose Texas, many people thought the Longhorns had scored a recruiting coup, as Tennessee and Ole Miss were both hot on Manning's recruiting trail. Manning has sat dutifully his last 2 years waiting his turn. When he got his turn against Ohio State, the defending national champions, his performance was less than stellar. And people are already, this scribe included, saying that his performance was all hype and no hard work. Then when you sit back and look at it and you wonder, is it all hype? Is it all what it's cracked up to be? Is Arch Manning going to be a great quarterback? No one knows. His next 3 or 4 games will be against lighter competition, and he should be able to put up kind of numbers that many people would expect him to put up as a Manning with that pedigree we all talk about. But are we putting too much pressure on the kid? Are we putting too much hype into the name, into the legacy, into the quarterback family that he has been born into? Many people think that it's too much hype, too much for the kid, and that he wilted under the pressure. I say, step back, wait. If he continues to play mediocre, then you can say, too much hype, not enough substance to the man. But I say, wait just a minute, wait a few games. I have the feeling that Arch Manning will live up to his name and put out the kind of performances that many people expect of him, the ones that his uncle and his grandfather did put out. I say wait. I counsel patience, but I hope for his sake that the media monster that his name has created doesn't consume him. And that is the final word from the Wood. Now, with the music coming up in the background, you know that means that your time here in the Hoodwood is just about done, and thank you so much for your visit. Now, the show's email is kjgreen@sportsfromthehoodwood.com. Please send me emails regarding show topics, both past and future, questions, comments on the show in both praise and criticism. Again, correspondence, we'll try to get back to you in a timely manner. Now, the show's website is sportsfromthehoodwood.com. Has a catalog of the show dating back 13 years of both audio and video forms. Check that out, the shows that you may have missed. You can join the debate and conversation on the Sports from the Hoodwood page on Facebook. It also has a video podcast simulcast as well as other topics, funny stuff that I find on the web, plenty of great sports debate, and lots more. I post there often and respond to member posts quite often. We have a lot of great posts from our members. Join up and join the debate. Now, the video versions are also on YouTube and Spotify. Please hit that subscribe and smash that like button for more great content. Now, the link to the podcast is also on the show's Blue Sky feed, which will be coming back up soon at hoodwoodsports.bsky.social. As opposed to other interesting stuff, find there. Your correspondence with the show is encouraged, and we do respond back in a timely manner, so like and follow there as well. Now, the audio version is also on Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Samsung Podcast, Apple Podcast, and a host of other fine platforms and providers. If Hoodwood is not on your favorite, please ask for it. Drop me a line, and I'll do what I can to get it there. Now, we've expanded our podcast availability thanks to your correspondence, and we do appreciate it. As always, special thanks to Rage Pictures for providing production assistance for both the show and website. And that's it for the Hoodwood, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Until next time, fellow sports fans, I'm merely Bev's son, KJ Green, 30.
Sports from the Hoodwood
is a Black Bandit Productions and Enterprises presentation
of a 551 audio and films production.